But whatever their origins, it is clear that cultures throughout the Austronesian area of influence share many things. We share the same love for the sea and sail on similarly designed boats with outriggers. The Austronesian house prototype is another influence evident throughout the region. Prehistory teaches us that the Bahay Kubo or the Bahay-na-Nipa is one variation of the Austronesian archetype. Basically, it is a single-room dwelling built out of wood and bamboo. In response to climatic conditions of the region and to monsoon rains, the house is raised off the ground on wooden posts to protect it from floods and to provide better ventilation. At the height of the Austronesian expansion, the early Filipinos began developing into more advanced cultures and communities. This period saw the introduction of rice agriculture and the use of domesticated farm animals.
When you develop agriculture, settlements will nucleate and grow around rice fields, etc.
The mere fact that rice plays a crucial, central role in many cultures in the Philippines is brought about by the influx of cultures or interaction with cultures or dominance of cultures that are practically Austronesian language-based.
Sites such as the Angona petroglyphs, the oldest rock art in the Philippines dated to about 3000 BC, indicate the beginning of new forms of expression, of communicating thoughts and ideas contained in religious beliefs. This was to eventually lead to the development of writing. Archaeological finds such as the Laguna copper plate, dated to 900 AD, indicate that early Filipinos were part of a culture which had adopted a writing system long before the coming of the Spaniards.
The development of writing in islands, Southeast Asia, came much later than the Austronesian migrations. These writing systems, which spread all throughout these islands, generally came from the Palava writing system from South India, and then spread throughout these islands, transformed, assumed various forms, and were used in various also practices of writing. We were part of a kind of community, and all of these objects, artifacts, cultures, languages, they are flowing in this particular area.
Other objects, such as the Kalatagan pot, also show writing which testify to a pre-Hispanic culture more advanced than previously believed.
The Baybayin is a writing system which we developed ourselves in order to address our own particular needs. And it was not imposed on us. It is the result of a kind of communal genius. It shows us that people during that time, they were intent on putting their thoughts down, writing these thoughts down, documenting things, not forgetting things. But yeah, given the perishable materials upon which these texts were written, it was obvious that they would not last for a long time.
As early Filipinos became more culturally advanced, settlements likewise prospered. In this, one object played a major role: the boat.
For a long time in human history, the boat has always been the main vehicle for travel.
The best highway then are waterways.
The boat, therefore, provides some kind of symbolism of the connections of our islands, the exchanges in trade and culture.
Early Filipinos sailed the seas to make contact with other people who could have lived either in neighboring islands or in more distant shores like Java, China, and even India. Nowhere in the Philippines is there strong archaeological evidence of that seafaring culture than in Butuan. When Butuan city engineers were laying out drainage in the mid-1970s, they accidentally discovered one of the largest and most important archaeological finds in the country. Edgardo Sanchez, who was then working for the Butuan Water District, was among those who made this incredible discovery.
At first, it was a boat coffin, a sort of a dugout.
9 of these relics have so far been found, with the oldest balanghay being dated to 320 AD. The balanghay are large wooden boats averaging 13 meters in length. The boats are examples of Neolithic marine architecture, using wooden planks pegged together and lashed with cabo negro vine. To get more insights into the unique technology behind this national treasure, I decide to interview Greg Ontiveros, head of the Butuan Historical and Cultural Foundation. Although not a trained archaeologist, Greg's intensive historical research on the balanghay provided me with a wealth of historical data about the balanghay's remarkable characteristics.
The influence in the technology of the building of the balanghay boat is something that was widespread not only in the Philippines but also so much of Southeast Asia. The way it was built is really fascinating because it was, they call it the hull first construction, which was quite different from the way boats were built in the Western countries and in China. The boats here in Southeast Asia were built during that time where the planks were first put up to complete the hull before the supports, the ribs were put in place. How they were able to bend the timber, which is 2 inches thick.
Of hardwood,
tropical hardwood, 10 inches wide. And so they would bend this to the shape of the boat without any mold or whatever. And the Spaniards marveled at the skills of Filipino shipbuilders. So they said, in certain instances, some native shipwrights were paid higher than the Spaniards.
True to the Austronesian tradition, early Filipinos were able to sail from the Agusan River Delta, carrying people and trade to distant points in the region. From the Agusan River swamps came the discoveries of enormous amounts of high-fired ceramics from Cambodia and Thailand. Persian glassware was also found, suggesting prehistoric links going as far as India and the Middle East. But what attracted traders and merchants from across the region to Butuan was its most precious commodity, gold. Archaeologists have found gold jewelry and ornaments so fine and so precise in execution dating to over 1,000 years ago. The discoveries prove that Butuan was a thriving international trade and cultural center, a port from where early Filipinos established linkages with cultures near and far. Preeminent among these connections was that with China.
Butuan is very unique in the Chinese records because the earliest diplomatic mission to China was from Butuan, year 1003. So 500 years before Magellan, we already had tribute missions to China that came from Butuan. And if you couple that with many of the ancient Chinese maps, navigational maps, where Philippine islands appear, then you would know that the Chinese knew about these islands and the people from the Philippines have been trading extensively with them.
Our historical and cultural links with China are clearly documented at the Bahay-na-Nipa, an impressive museum located at the Kaisa Heritage Center in Intramuros. Mea C takes me on a tour of the museum and explains the significance of the various pre-Spanish artifacts on display.
This depiction is based on half Philippine history based. And these are the Chinese historical annals.
Among these are replicas of Chinese chronicles which meticulously detail the experiences of Chinese merchants in trading with our pre-colonial ancestors.
The terms that they use for us, no, for the natives are barbarians. But in the same stories, they always qualify na the trading is always fair.
Yes.
The trading is always honest.
Mea's mother, Teresita Angsi, has written what is probably the definitive book about the Chinese in Philippine life.
The natives would bring the goods to the hinterland and come back 3 to 4 months after, and the Chinese trader would say, even if we could not recognize the faces of these barbarians, none of our goods are lost. And they would talk about how hardworking our ancestors were, especially the women. It's not just trading that happened during the pre-Hispanic times, but these traders also became cultural brokers.
With the decline of Butuan in the 14th century AD, a group from this once prosperous trading hub began migrating to the Sulu area.
There are many archaeological and linguistic indications that show that the Tausug moved from the Butuan area to the Jolo area, where they began to dominate trade.
In Sulu, they intermingled with other groups which had begun to embrace a new religion, Islam, which was introduced by Arab traders during the 13th century. The Muslim impact still remains in southern Mindanao, evident not only in religion but in many other cultural aspects. Probably the most striking example of Muslim art and architecture is that of the Maranao, one of the 5 most prominent ethno-linguistic groups identified as Muslim Filipinos. The totality of the Maranao culture can be found in the Torogan.
Physically, the Torogan architecturally is a really huge cavernous house and highly ornate.
Traditional Maranao wood carving, called okir, decorate the Torogan. Panulong, wing-like carved wooden elements protrude from the wooden walls along the side of the Torogan. Geometric motifs are richly carved on these elements, testimony to traditional Maranao craftsmanship. The entire structure is lifted off the ground by massive tree trunks, which, unlike standard construction, rest on large stones instead of being anchored to the ground.
They place the rocks to prevent dry rot of the wood in contact with the ground.
Typical of Austronesian-influenced dwellings, Torogans are single-room structures.
The house itself is the domicile of a royalty there, but he is not alone there. His kin group also stays in the house. There is usually a main bed, which is the bed of the owner, and around this bed are placed his treasured belongings, heirloom pieces. It is also where social events of the communities are held. Weddings, for instance, political decisions are made. If you look at all the architectural types in the Philippines, I was able to isolate about 57 types of architecture in the Philippines. The Torogan is probably the most beautiful.